Hello and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. This is our Captain's Log supplemental episode about the debate in between Biden and Trump. Super exciting. I am joined, as always, by the lovely Deplorable Knitter.
Yeah, we wanted to just hop on super quick and share our thoughts about what happened last night. And Anne and I haven't discussed this even slightly at all today. So this is going to be raw and fresh, and I don't know if we're going to totally agree. So I'm a little interested to see what happens.
It'll be a little interesting. Clearly, they didn't agree either. So, there's a lot of frisson in the air.
So, first things first. Did you feel like Trump was debating two people last night?
Oh, definitely.
It was terrible.
I mean, to begin with, the first mistake was agreeing to a debate in which either side can only speak in 2-minute segments. You can't possibly have a clear discussion of ideas, a clear policy discussion, anything but slogans in this amount of time. I mean, yeah, you got to try. There was some trying there, but it's very, very difficult, I think.
Yeah.
And then
you say that nobody can share their ideas within 2 minutes, but I think it was actually pretty perfect for Joe because it gave him the opportunity to use his little rehearsed segments to answer the questions, and there wasn't a lot of room for him to expound. There wasn't a lot of room for him to riff, so I was just waiting for him to do something ridiculous, and it never really got there. And I think that part of it is because he was able to kind of stick to the campaign slogans, to stick to those little sound bites.
Right. And I mean, he didn't offer any concrete solutions. The biggest I saw was on climate change, that we were going to weatherize buildings. Well, in the Green New Deal, which in the debate he was against and then he was for, because I'm not doing the Green New Deal and then it pays for itself. But the Green New Deal, that part of it is you're tearing down buildings to build them again green, which is the most horrible and wasteful thing, not only in destroying architecture, but there's no purpose in this. And then that is your shovel-ready jobs that Biden kept promising, green jobs, green jobs, green jobs. But with what economy? It was very flimsy. It was very,
It was flimsy, but unfortunately, the president was horribly argumentative last night. And I know that you probably found it amusing because you and I don't necessarily agree on how he handles stuff. But I found it kind of annoying. Like, I just wish that he would give Biden enough rope to hang himself. He kept cutting him off right about the time that it seemed like he was starting to go off on a tangent. And I just wish he would have let him look like a fool on his own. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I agree with you there that, I mean, Biden could, I mean, the times where Biden was allowed to get on a tangent and got a little hairy for him, that like, wait, what are you saying? But I mean, to a certain extent, I understand interrupting him, knocking him off his game. It is exactly what Biden did to Ryan in the vice presidential debates when it was between Romney and Obama. That he interrupted Ryan a lot, and that really, really messed him up. But yeah, Trump could have let him speak more, but it was. You have Trump interrupting Biden all these times, and then it was the more that Trump interrupted Biden, it seemed the more that Chris Wallace was for Biden's side, which
absolutely. And it seemed like that, Trump would start to make a point that was a good point, and then Chris Wallace would be like, "Oh no, that's in the next section. Oh, you've got to hold on. We're going to touch it." Like, he didn't really let them debate. It really felt like and then Joe would like forget what question he was talking about. And Chris Wallace is all like, "Oh, that's okay. It gets confusing, doesn't it?" Like,
right.
Who does that in a debate? Like, come on, guy. You don't know what question you're answering?
Right.
I mean, I didn't know what question they were answering because they were on tangents, but I wasn't debating. So I didn't need to.
Right. They were on tangents. And there were several times throughout where on one side, it was the big controversy of the night with with Trump. Oh, Trump won't denounce white supremacy. He was saying he had in the last week, he designated the KKK as an official terrorist organization. Okay. Obama didn't do that. Clinton didn't do that. Nobody else did that. Trump did. Okay. He has disavowed white supremacists again and again. The line which Chris Wallace brought up, where, Trump said there were good people on both sides. If you listen 5 minutes on either side of that line in the speech, you don't even need to listen to the whole speech. If you listen to 5 minutes more, the entire context was people didn't want the Robert E. Lee statue taken down. There were white supremacists there, which Trump said twice that he disavows entirely. I'm not talking about the white supremacists, but they were good people. There are good people on both sides, and both sides he was referring to people who want the Robert E. Lee statue taken down and people who don't want it taken down. Those were the two sides. He said in the speech twice that he disavows white supremacy, and he's disavowed it again and again and again. And we have Biden should ask him about him speaking at the funeral of Robert Byrd, who was actually a Klansman.
There were a few things that I wish that Trump had brought up like that, like saying, hey, you call me a white supremacist, but why were you doing that? And the thing about all I saw on social media today, like everywhere, was that people were saying, oh, he told them to stand back and stand by when they were talking about the Proud Boys. Twice Chris Wallace asked him if he disavowed the white supremacists, and he goes, sure. And and then Chris Wallace said it again, and he said, sure, I'll do that. But because it was such a cluster, I mean, seriously, the shouting and the arguing and Chris shouting and them talking over each other, I think that it got lost. And so people heard him say that thing about standing back, and they were like, oh, he's calling up the white supremacists to hold out and wait for him. It's just utter nonsense. And it's amazing how we can watch the same thing as these people, take away totally different things. I never once thought that he said it, that white supremacists were like good people.
No.
But they all like, oh, and then Joe and his Antifa, it's not a group, it's an idea. What world is he living in?
I know, and especially, and you know, it's like, anarchists don't have membership rolls, but Antifa does have a membership roll, actually, because I know people who are on it, and you really can be, hi, I'm whoever, and I'm actually a member of Antifa. You really can, and to say we've mentioned this before, there's a certain amount of blaming that, oh, the violence is caused by white supremacists, or the violence is caused by Antifa. That, you know, we've arrested people who are Antifa. Like, they're in jail now, and we have mugshots. As for the white supremacists, while it's not as if they don't exist, where are they at in numbers?
Yeah, we haven't seen them burning anything down lately. And, you know, I was talking to my dad about this morning. Obviously, it was a topic. Every person I talked to, I had to talk about the debate because that's how it went down. But he was talking about, like, Trump really should have brought up the people on Biden's side that are paying the bail for all of these people. Like, if there's no Antifa, then why the heck are they raising all this bail money for them? What's going on with that? But it made me really wish for that Joe Rogan debate that Trump agreed to, where you could actually have both sides sit there and talk and end up with like a 4-hour debate. Yeah, that would have, again, it would be really nice to expound it. And Trump has expounded on a lot of these issues before. I've seen several people on the interwebs today talk about how, you know, Trump is a white supremacist, and saying like, hey, he's not, he's denounced this. Oh, but he's lying. Well, how many times does a guy have to say you're against white supremacy? But how many different people have supported him? How many Hispanic people have supported him throughout the years? In Mar-a-Lago, he was the first club to be totally open to non-white or Jews, or it's allowed in Mar-a-Lago. He is consistently for people of all backgrounds and races and religions and everything else. You know, he hires women on his boards more than nope, you can't live the life
that Donald Trump has lived and be a white supremacist. You can't get along. You just can't.
Right.
And it's something that's been brought up
But
many
them
times.
pointing that out is just, it's like we discussed earlier, it's a sound clip. It's a easy in. It's a hard to debate fact. I mean, you and I have been called white supremacists. It's a hard, like, we're not, but how do I
Right.
prove
With the
that to
Ravelry
somebody that
ban, we
I'm
have
not?
been, because as Trump supporters, the Ravelry ban
Right.
said
And I
that,
have also been called it on just because
right, just for
people do
funsies.
that, whatever.
Yeah.
But so but it's, they bring up things that you can't really debate.
Like when Trump said that, they're like, oh, why are you against critical race theory? And the first thing he says is because it's racist. And Trump is very careful that when he says things, he said that certain people would be forced to do certain things. And Trump doesn't like to come out and say that white people, because part of critical race theory is that if you are white, you are racist. And there is no level of white where you're not racist. You have to admit your racism in these critical race theory things. And it's not just you have to condemn yourself entirely as a racial group. You have to say that because of your race, you are wrong.
Right.
And
It's like that white fragility book that just, because you're white, you're horrible and you can't do anything to fix it. So screw you, go away.
right. And the only way to be anti-racist is to then be racist. That you have to see everything through the lens of race, and to not see things through the lens of race is more racist. And it's a horrible thing. And again, I loved the RNC. So to go back to it, that you have the RNC, which big message was, it's not, there have been trials in America's past, but we have overcome it. We have done our best to overcome it as much as it is able, and we're going to do better in the future. You know, that the carousel of progress. There's a great big beautiful tomorrow. Like we're going for it. And the Democrat convention was one of those like black and white crying beaten puppy ads where, in the arms of a racist angel. Like this is just, and then a celebrity comes out to guilt you into doing what they say. It's horrible. But I know that we're on the debate. We're not at the RNC and the DNC, but it's
Yeah, I was proud of him for saying it like that too. Like, it's not okay. It's demoralizing. It's, the people hate it. It's, it's condemning a whole group of people. But I thought he said it very eloquently, so it wasn't argumentative like he can tend to be. It was just
right.
very
A lot of the debate was
factual.
argumentative, and he kind of went down the line quickly on that one.
Yeah.
And again, I've seen people say, well, why don't you if this is anti-racist, then doesn't everything want to be anti-racist? It's a bit like dealing, I know that this is said in our conservative circles a lot, but it is a bit like dealing with a cult. That you may say, sorry, I always have to put my cup down when I talk with my hands. But you say, you're random, fairly normal denomination of Christian, and you meet someone who's in a Christian cult. And if you have this set of words like, Holy Spirit, Heavenly Father, whatever spiritual words, and they have the same set of words, but they have entirely different meanings. So you're trying to talk this way and they're talking this way, and you end up totally missing each other when you have the same words. And words really do matter. But it's also kind of the weird, I think Orwell said, newspeak, that's trying to grab the meanings of words and to change them. Mm-hmm. That it's very difficult when they say, well, don't you want to be not racist? There's nobody who wants to be racist or supports racism. That is not what we're saying. When you're saying that the only way to be not racist, to be correct, is to essentially create racist acts by saying that by the color of your skin, you are racist. That is the height of racism. And then, like we said in talking with conversations with people, that when you bring up people who are not white that support Trump or are against critical race theory, that that the color of your skin makes your opinion matter unless a person with a certain color of skin disagrees with you ideologically. Because in the end, it is not a skin color thing, it's an ideology.
Right.
That
That's true.
it's a really horrible thing. Like, this is like, this is not just racism, this is advanced racism. This is real.
Yeah.
This is some special stuff.
Moving on from racism, because everybody thinks Trump is a racist, and so that's nothing new.
We've had enough of that for forever.
But I thought that I was kind of surprised that Biden went away from the Green New Deal, and that he made the statement that he is the Democratic Party, and that he kind of was distancing himself from some of the more radical people, because I know they want to pull him closer to center, but isn't he alienating the far left by doing that? Like,
I don't know.
Is that good or bad? Like, saying that he doesn't like the Green New Deal? Like, I don't. Do you have? I'm sure you have thoughts on that, Anne.
No, sorry for interrupting you, because I just remembered that you don't watch Star Wars, so it's very I am the Senate, like I am the Democratic Party. You know, I am the captain.
I just don't necessarily enjoy them. There's a large difference between seeing something and caring to remember that you've seen it.
That's fair. That's fair. There are many things that I don't care to remember that I've seen.
Exactly.
Several of them are on the interwebs today. I'm just joking.
But you know what I mean? He really, like, he pulled away from the Green New Deal. He pulled away from a lot of things. He
pulled away from the Green New Deal, and then he doubled down, which was really...
But he kept calling it the Biden plan. So I guess if you haven't done your research, then you don't know that the Green New Deal is the Biden plan. Like, it's the Green New Deal 2.0. You know what I mean? Like, so...
You know, I think I'm going to start this in conversation when people don't know what I'm talking about, and someone's like, well, I think industry should be this way. And I'm like, well, if you had read the Pinkava plan, which nobody has read, as a presidential candidate, he would be more, hopefully someone would have heard of the Biden plan instead of the Pinkava plan, which is, it's great.
Well, I hadn't heard of the Biden plan until last night, so I don't.
I know. He should do some more speeches about that with people and then take questions.
Maybe he should get out of the basement. And they were like against Trump for like, it might not have been during the debate. It may have been some other thing I've seen since then, because I've been inundated with everything. But they were like, oh, Trump's been in his bunker and Biden's been out. And I was like, what world do you people live in? Trump has been everywhere on earth and Biden has been nowhere to be found. Like, I just feel sometimes like it's the Twilight Zone. Because I watch something and the same people watch the same thing. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this happened. They're like, no, it didn't. And it's like we speak a different language.
I know.
I don't understand.
It's some serious disconnect. And that it can be so divided is it is an entirely, it's like watching two different movies. And
it is. And then trying to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, everybody's like, oh, Biden did great. Biden had this bar that if he didn't trip over it when he was done, everybody's like, wow, he was amazing, because that's how bad he's been lately.
Right. And it was Biden did great when he was clearly fading at the end of that. Like, beginning to end the debate, he was not doing as well. Like, there was one point in the debate in which Biden stopped mid-sentence and was like, kind of, you know, and then Trump jumped in with his side, and it was almost as if Trump picked up the conversation. Like, between us sometimes when we run out of words and the next person will jump in and keep going, it was almost as if Trump was holding up the conversation, only it was a debate. I thought that was an interesting moment.
And that's the point I was trying to make earlier, is when he did stuff like that, I just wish he would have stayed calm for another minute and let him look like a fool.
Right.
But then again, I still feel like Chris Wallace was also holding him up when he was doing that. So,
Well,
I
I
don't know
think
that it would have mattered.
I understand again that it was obvious and annoying Trump interrupting Biden a lot. Um, Even though it was really funny with him and Hunter. Oh my goodness. And then Biden repeatedly saying that, oh, those aren't real sources. And oh, $3.5 million from the wife of a Moscow mayor who was so corrupt in Moscow that he was thrown out for corruption in Moscow. Like, that is really true, bona fide, verifiable fact. Just like, and also the money from China. These are Senate hearing documents. Money from China, money from the Ukraine, money spent in human trafficking. Like, that's some really nasty money to be spending there, Hunter. With persons involved with human trafficking in Eastern Europe. That's really, really bad. But I mean, you have Trump and he's badgering Biden, and that's not a particularly good look. That's pretty rude. But
it is pretty rude, but it was also interesting because like Trump talked to him about your son was dishonorably discharged, and he's going, my son was a war hero, blah blah blah. And the president's like, I never knew Bo. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the one that, got kicked out for doing a little, you know what I mean?
Yeah, doing a little cocaine.
little side stuff going on.
Yeah.
We're talking about that guy.
The amount of restraint it says, no, we're not talking about the dead one. We're talking about the crackhead. Like,
yeah. We're not talking, and I like the way he dealt with that too. Like, I didn't meet him. I don't know him. I'm not talking about him. Like, I'm not going to talk about your dead kid. That part I was like,
yeah. And another,
some of his, I was a little questionable on some of his badgering.
Right. And to go back to the DNC, I didn't watch it through, but the part that I did see, you'd almost think that Bo was running because there was so much about Bo Biden and what a war hero he was. And I'm not saying that his service wasn't honorable, but they're playing it off as if he died in action. And he didn't. He died from cancer.
That's interesting. I was remiss. I did not watch either of the conventions, and for the future, I will certainly do that because then I will know what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I admit that for the Democratic one, I just saw bits and pieces from clips on Tucker Carlson, and I think Crowder did a watch through. And with whatever Crowder's doing. But so yeah, I will admit that I wasn't diligent in watching the DNC all the way through. It was mostly me sitting on the couch and making fun of people's interior design in Zoom meetings. Not that I'm so great, but still, that was the most entertaining part of it for me. Biden had to admit his son did cocaine. It was very, very much, and as did some of you. And I was like,
thanks.
I mean,
I didn't, but cool.
I mean, it's not impossible that some of your audience did cocaine, but I also see no evidence that he's actually sober. So, but
good point. Good point.
I do think that the best thing that Biden did throughout the entire debate is that he sort of like zoned in on the camera. I'm talking to you, the American people. Not a lot of what he said actually made sense, but for everyone so alone and in their houses, starving for a little eye contact and a little personal connection, I think that was a good play. The fact that he wasn't, beyond the fact that he actually looked in the camera in the eye, what he said wasn't super helpful. He made an emotional play, and the emotional play was not entirely ineffective, but that the emotional play had no facts behind it. To a certain extent, yet another person on the interwebs. I always say interwebs, internet, Instagram. We know how I look at things. But a woman who was like, oh, wow, this is so terrible, and then went off and drew this kind of crude drawing of Trump as a dog on Putin's leash. Unity. There's nothing like it. But, and again, this is reaction from Democrats that I encounter either on the internet or
right.
slightly more personally.
So, you know, after the debates are done, they always like come out with who won and who lost and whatever. And I think people more or less said it was a tie, which means that Trump probably did better than Biden, but you know, people aren't going to say that. But the interesting thing was that Telemundo had Trump as the clear winner. So that was very encouraging.
Yeah. That is so. So either the Hispanic vote doesn't mind interrupting, or whoever was doing the live translating was like, "Wow."
I mean, like,
continues.
Most of the stuff I saw said like, oh, 6 out of 10 people say that Biden won, but I'm not certain how accurate the polls are because, you know, every poll has a different thing. And everything that I'm seeing currently is CBS and, you know, Washington Post and New York Times. And so I don't know.
Yeah. But I think it was what's the guy's name? Frank Lunst, who does a polling group. I hope I'm getting his name right. That in his group that there was a large group of people that it made people less want to vote at all, which I thought was like, wow.
You know, I'm not surprised about that because by the time it was over last night, I was annoyed. Like my husband stayed up and he watched all of like the after debate thing, and he was talking about how great it was, and you know, Dan Bongino got on there afterwards and he was talking about how this wasn't for independent or undecided voters because like only 6% of people are undecided. He was saying that Trump was using this opportunity to get his base motivated and excited and kind of come out swinging. And so it was an interesting take on it because by the time it was over, I was annoyed. I was like, dude, I got to go to bed. I can't believe I stayed up past my bedtime for this crap. That was an interesting point that maybe it wasn't to sway people, but it was kind of to try to get people a little bit more excited about it. So
I don't know. I personally think it wasn't a net much for Trump. I know there's a lot of things that Biden can't answer for. And let's see, you have things like the Hunter Biden thing, and you have facts about how the Trump family has actually lost money while being in government, and the Biden family has vastly enriched themselves while in government.
That was one thing that came up was that Biden was like, oh, millionaires like you, never mind the fact that him and his kid are both millionaires, even though he's been in politics for his whole life. So sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Yep, there's tons of things. There's like, oh, well, your tax returns and should go further in depth that you pay $700 in taxes and that's less than a teacher. Tax code wise, a lot of Trump's things is that you pay in a lot of money last year and that rolls over to this year and you also have to pay $750. I've heard that speculated, but I've also heard speculated that the $750 figure is actually not corroborated by anybody. Like it was in all the papers and it is, brought up in a presidential debate to have.
Dude, that $750 figure came out and an hour later, Joe Biden had an ad talking about it. So you can't tell me that they're not working together on that nonsense.
Yeah, there's been so many things coming out, especially with the Trump thing of, oh, well, you called soldiers losers and suckers. And then Trump turns around, I'm like, excuse me, Al, but you called soldiers stupid bastards. Well, and then Biden's like, I didn't. It's like, there is tape. I've seen this tape.
I didn't know about that. My husband said it was on the news, and he's like, no, look it up right now. So he stood there while I looked it up, and I'm like, no, he didn't.
Like, yeah, he did.
He did. It's on tape.
Again, apologies for language and everything, but that is literally what he said. And again, this is on tape, and there were so many different times where it's like, but I have a tape of this, Biden. But there's hard evidence. Again, facts. You can't.
Yeah, Trump is in trouble for quid pro quo. Never mind the fact that Joe said it on tape.
Right. That was also brought up.
for the whole military thing, never mind that the whole Biden issue was on tape.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just such a double standard.
Yeah, and especially since it was, what, over 20 people who are still in or used to be in Trump's administration who said independently, yeah, no, this didn't happen. I'm sorry.
Never happened.
No.
Yeah.
Yep. But it's
So
different things like that where it's, I don't know, crazy.
it is crazy.
And especially, you have the economy things that Biden says that, oh, well, you crashed this economy. The Obama economy was so great. Okay, I'm old enough to remember the Obama economy. And I'm sure our watchers at home also remember the Obama economy. And COVID, lots of that crashed a lot of things. But before COVID, that's Fred Astaire song, things are looking up. Like there was so much. And that Biden said, oh, well, you're taking away manufacturing jobs. Yeah, Apple is making computers in America. In America.
Yeah. No, last night when Biden pulled that out, my husband said, under Obama, I was not doing as well as I am. Since Trump has been in office, we have, as a family of 4, we're that middle class that they don't like. We've been doing a lot better. But, and Biden's going, oh, nobody's going to say that they're doing better under you. Dude, I am doing better. I will say it. It's been a lot better. So,
I mean, I would even say that, different life circumstances and everything between me and 4 years ago, I would even say doing better under COVID.
Yeah.
Like, not that things are easy under COVID, but really, I'd take Trump any day.
We're not 100%, but we're still doing all right. And that's the difference. I can't imagine what would have happened if this nonsense had gone down under their administration. We were already paying more in taxes. We were already, it just would have hurt so much. I mean, it's already hurting a ton of people, but it just would have been exponentially way more by under them.
It's crazy. And it's just like, oh, well, I brought manufacturing. I did this, you did that. And it's like, you just didn't, Joe. Like, again, the numbers.
He was in the administration that said you would need a magic wand.
Right, which Trump brought up that you'd need a magic wand to bring back manufacturing, and then he did. Wanting to go back to the Paris Climate Accords, where guess who gets punished? That America is the only one who would have taken up any of the slack, and it's their businesses, their factories, who would have been debased further. And then you have, again, the people who have just come out to support Trump, the iron workers range in Minnesota. We have lobster fishermen. We have so many people. Talk about blue collar jobs. Oh, Trump only, is making money for millionaires and billionaires. And look at all of them who have made so much money during COVID. Like, first, you should take out Mr. Jeff Bezos at Amazon, because he's been raking it in these days with everyone shipping everything. But talking about actual real construction jobs, real shovel-ready jobs, real small businesses who can open their doors because they won't have so many punitive taxes. Talking about actually building up industry. That he opened up he opened up fishing waters for lobster fishermen. He opened up the iron range. He, talking about, Biden was talking about how no one will open a coal plant again. Okay, not to mention the jobs of coal miners who are down. Right now there is a byproduct of coal called flash, that it's the leftover coal dust when you've got absolutely everything out of it. And actually our construction, once you add that to concrete, it makes it a lot stronger. So our construction industry, to a certain extent, is helped by all of these coal plants. And the coal plants also, like, they've brought down so much pollution that coal plants have had from what they've had in the past, and made the coal plants themselves are more energy efficient than they used to be. But still, our construction industry now needs the byproduct of coal. And so you're going to take away all these jobs for green energy that Gavin Newsom can't get to work in California. Like,
Yeah,
oh, so
the
that's
green
what you're going to do.
energy that, you know, they make all those ginormous windmills and then they can't recycle the blades. They only last like 10 years. I've mentioned to you before that we drive an electric car. We don't drive an electric car necessarily because we're like environmentalists. When we came to buying a new car and my husband needed a commuter, it made more sense because it was cheaper. But to get all that stuff, to get the ion batteries, all like the amount of waste that goes into it is just nonsense. And so to say, oh, we're going to have this green new.
Oh yeah, the mining practices for the chemicals and things that you need for the
stuff.
In order to get that, and for the different things that you also need for solar panels and everything else, it's an incredibly dirty process, and it has to be shipped back and forth from places all over the world. So the physical energy to move things,
never factor that part in. They never factor in that those windmills only last so long, and then the blades are so huge that they can't do anything with them.
Oh yeah, it's just massive broken plexiglass.
It's just ridiculous.
And not to mention that the amount of money, not just energy created, windmills don't pay for themselves. Now, we can work on windmills and we can make them better, but windmills do not pay for themselves. And not only to mention in your environmentalist utopia of California, that Elon Musk has now left California for Texas. Okay, it's not even good if you're the electric car guy. It's not.
Well, and, you know, California just said that by 2035, everybody has to have an electric car. Well, you guys have rolling blackouts as it is. What the hell are you going to do once people have electric cars? Like, oh, you only get power for a few hours a day, so you better charge all your stuff because you're out of luck otherwise. Like,
right. Yeah, and it reminds me of an old interview that Boris Johnson did for the British car show Top Gear. And that was back when he was just mayor of London, not prime minister. And he was talking about how great electric cars are. And Jeremy Clarkson said, oh, so where does the electricity come from for the electric cars? And he said, well, the plug. And Jeremy's like, you mean a coal-fired power plant? Like, right. This is that, think it through, that it's, like a lot of things, it's not, people say things like green energy, and green energy sounds really good, but you have to think it through to every single point. And just to say that it's green energy because it's electric, well, if gasoline cars are getting more and more and more fuel efficient, how is that, to a certain extent, not more efficient energy wise and even pollution wise? As technology progresses, it gets more efficient. So how is that not more effective than the horrible waste and smelting and everything else that you need for your lithium ion and everything else?
No, I mean, one of our friends, her dad, like, went off on us for driving an electric car. And my husband said, look, I'm not doing it because I think I'm being like all green and fancy. He said, I needed a new car. It was cheaper to charge. It cost us around $50 a month to charge our car at our house. He was paying around $200 a month to commute. So therefore, if we had to take on a car payment, it just made more sense to do it that way. We're not thinking we're saving the world by having an electric car. And that's the problem. People don't understand all the things that go into it.
Right.
And they don't understand all the things that go into the green energy. And they don't understand all the things that are going to go into weatherproofing houses and making them better and blah, blah. It's a bunch of nonsense.
Right.
It's just a bunch of buzzwords.
Right. And also, too, this is just a me thing. This isn't necessarily an outward thing. But prefab energy efficient housing is the bane of my existence. It is the ugliest thing. I hate it. It makes my soul die. And not to mention, Trump in his speeches talks about energy efficient like washing machines and stuff where you have to run them several times because they're really crappy and you can't actually get anything clean with them. And I'm like, oh, great. We can live in the same ugly box and in the same exact textured walls, and we can sit there and we can all wave to each other as we go out of our soulless houses, and then we can go to our equally soulless job. But it's okay, the government has endless money and everything will be great. And oh, Biden, it reminds me of the Obama era again, and I would not have it back for anything.
So I just an hour ago started reading 1984, and just everything you said is like, oh my god.
And you're like, no. Like,
oh my god.
Yes, 1984. I first read it when, I guess it would have been high school that I read it, and I only read it that one time, but I can almost quote passages. It had a large impact on my life. So
well, everybody keeps referencing it, so I was like, I've got to get it, I've got to listen to it. And my kids were doing something, and so I was like, I'll sit down for an hour and listen to this. And I was like, wow, this is depressing and totally accurate. So there you go. It's awesome.
Yeah, what gave Orwell the right?
Oh my god, it's awful. In like a really creepy, accurate, interesting kind of way. It's awful.
Right.
But, oh, Trump asked Biden for his Supreme Court nominations.
Oh, yes.
It's not an answer for that.
Not
so
that Yes, and I mean, that was one of the real touchstones when, when Trump is first campaigning, for president the first time. And, we're like, I don't know, it's kind of bombastic. We're not sure if he's really, conservative or not, or what his policy decisions really are. We're not sure if he's really going to be good for the office. And then he put out his Supreme Court and his other court nominations. And that was really what solidified it for a lot of people. That a guy, right, that you can't be bad and put these people on the courts, basically.
Right.
And that the fact that Biden hasn't put out any.
Well, there's that. And also in the debate, he mentioned that she was a good pick. Like, he didn't have... Like, you would think that the guy running against Trump would be like, oh, she's terrible, she's whatever. He didn't say anything like that about her. And it was kind of like, I think you got your notes wrong, Joe. Did you notice he was reading a lot in the beginning? He was reading a lot out of like his podium.
Yeah, I noticed that he was kind of, looking down a lot. And
it just seemed like he was reading like right off of cue cards. I said, so did he have the questions before? Because I missed the first 5 minutes of debate. I had to do something with one of my kids, so I didn't see the beginning. But I was informed that they said there's no way anybody else got any of the questions. But, he had his cards, and he was totally just reading right off of them. So I still wonder. That's just me.
I know in the land of conspiracy, there's a video of it. It looks like a wire.
I totally saw that.
His jacket. Like, oh, well, and again, you don't want to lead with that one, but it's, again,
I don't know. It's a little questionable.
But it was interesting that he said, no, we're not doing the Green New Deal, and then the Green New Deal pays for itself. That is curious.
Yeah.
But
I did notice him doing that weird, like, he did this to a suit several times, and it's I can understand why people think he had something in there. I'm totally all for the conspiracy theories. I think they're interesting.
They're fun. But
why not?
Not to throw weight behind them, but they're fun.
I just thought it was interesting when they said that, because throughout the debate, I thought it was amazing how coherent he was. When he speaks in public, he ends up calling people names and
he called Trump plenty
insulting
names.
them. But not in the same way. He didn't call anybody a dog-faced pony soldier while he was doing this. And so I think that that's the part that I kind of was like, is it possible he was being fed something? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Well, and not to underestimate Biden too much. I mean, yes, he the lying dog-faced pony soldier, the I don't work for you he has said a lot of really bad things to his constituents, but it's like you ought not to underestimate your opponent. You should think that they are more strong than they are.
Yes. And I think that was one thing that the president didn't do last night. He expected him to flub and flounder, and when he didn't, it got very... Trump is a volatile person. Like, that's almost part of his appeal, but he almost was too argumentative last night. I hope that he reins it in the next time, that he lets Joe make a fool of himself on his own.
Right. I mean, I would say that when Joe did go off, he flubbed a bit on his own. Not totally, but he did flub a bit. On one hand, you have Trump, who is always talking over Biden, and it's very rude, it's very argumentative. But you also have a man who is just called a white supremacist on stage, and he can't let that go. And it can't let it go even, it's difficult because you had these ultra short, really unhelpfully short 2-minute segments. And you either have the problem of you have to reply to what the other guy said in those 2 minutes, or you have to make your own point in those 2 minutes. And whichever way you go, it's going to be bad. Either you didn't reply properly, or as Trump did several times through the debate, when he had those 2 minutes, he didn't use them to reply. He went another direction. And then it's like, oh, well, he didn't reply to what Biden just said. He lets that stand. Again, not that the performances were perfect, but I think it was a very, very difficult format to work from.
It was. And I also think that a lot of the issues I had with Trump were the fact that it felt like he couldn't make any progress or gain any traction, because not only was he fighting against Biden, but he was also fighting against Chris Wallace, which really made for a very argumentative, very difficult situation that he was in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is difficult.
It was certainly interesting, and the next one's in 2 weeks, and I think you're supposed to be on vacation, so we might have to have to like have a secret rendezvous at some point in time like this, and
that's true. I could probably get it together. I could work it out. We could, coming to you from an undisclosed location, unless I put it on Instagram, then it's disclosed.
Yes, but Anne and I will be here for the next ones. I'm sure we will make it work, and we will continue to give you our thoughts on this whole nonsense that's been going on. Sorry, the wine has finally gone to my head.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us for our supplemental special of Politically Incorrect Knitters.
Yes, our debate recap, number one.
Recap. Sorry.
Stay tuned for our next ones and our regular episodes, because we still do those too. So
oh yeah,
remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you find any of this interesting.
And we will see you all later. Bye.
Bye.